It's good to be home. Uh, First of all, it's so weird hearing an elected official talk about something getting done. Can you give a round of applause back to the State Assembly person that actually passed a law and helped somebody? I spend most of my time in Washington, D.C., where that just does not happen. I'll get to my remarks in a second, but it's so funny. They always talk about what the president hasn't gotten done, what the president hadn't gotten done, and now they have this whole new thing called the Obama economy. Everything is bad, because of the president, of course. And I was thinking to myself, when was the last time Obama got a chance to sign a law to do anything? And so I looked it up. The last time President Obama signed a law, like had a signing ceremony, he had black hair and looked like Tiger Woods. Now he looks like Morgan Freeman. So nothing's getting done in D.C. So look, I'm glad to be back in California for a minute. This is a serious observation. If equity is going to get done, it's not going to start in Washington, D.C. In other words, it's up to the people in this room to get it done. Now, this summer, to me, was the summer of Martin. And I want to talk about the summer of Martin to try to figure out what to do in 2014. It was the summer of Martin. But not Martin Luther King, Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin. So I'm on CNN. In the beginning of the summer, we're covering the trial of this young man who was killed apparently for the crime of wearing a hoodie. Somehow the hoodie became this important symbol in this whole case. Well, this kid was wearing a hoodie. So, Now, being from California most of my adult life, when I think about hoodies, I think about Mark Zuckerberg. And I think I would have a very hard time justifying shooting Mark Zuckerberg. Well, he was in my neighborhood, didn't look like he belonged there, and he was wearing a hoodie. So what would you do? So this is the summer where you have that. And then at the end of the summer, in the same country, show you how crazy and schizophrenic we are, in the same summer, the end of the summer, 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. And I'm at the same network in the same chair, covering the same country, dealing with the same name, Martin, and it's completely different experience. One young black kid named Trayvon Martin treated one way, and now here's Dr. Martin Luther King, a young black kid. Now, you don't think of Dr. Martin Luther King as a young black kid. Dr. Martin Luther King was 24 years old in Montgomery. We forget this. We act like Dr. King was 90 years old. He never saw his 40th birthday. He was killed in 39. He's 39 years old. 24 in Montgomery. Now, I know you're going to call me ageist. I wouldn't let a 24-year-old borrow my car today. But he's 24 in Montgomery. He's 33 years old on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. 33. And here I am on national television, and I'm watching this commemoration. And when he gave the speech at 33, the president and Bobby Kennedy, JFK and RFK, had told him, don't have the rally. Don't have the march. Don't bring all those Negroes to D.C. There'll be a riot. There'll be violence. They broke out. They had the army ready. And he stands there at 33 years old, and he starts to give a speech. And a part of the speech is what the assemblyman was talking about, this promissory note. But look, we're all friends here. The speech bombed. This is what nobody wants to deal with. He's standing there. You know, everybody's feeling sorry for my friend David. We've all been through it, man. And I'll tell you who went through it the worst. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. standing there in front of the whole world giving his I Have a Dream speech. And guess what? The speech didn't work. You know why? You know how you know the speech didn't work? The only part of the speech you remember is the end. You don't remember the promissory note. You know why? Because the speech that he gave was written by a committee. How many of us have been in committees? There's only one thing worse than a committee. It's called a coalition. I'm still in therapy from the Bay Area Coalition. So this committee writes this speech. You know what I'm talking about. So this committee writes a speech. And he gets up there and he gives the speech as best he can, but the speech sucks. And a sister. Can we tell the truth about that now? We can tell the truth now, can't we? It's 50 years, can't we? Is it still too soon? Do we still have to act like men know everything and the gods and this type? Do we know? Can we tell the truth about it? A sister, just like in Montgomery, the sisters organized the boycott. Rosa Parks' feet wasn't tied. She was a trained, disciplined member of the NAACP when the NAACP was underground, just like the ANC in South Africa. Rosa Parks' feet wasn't tired. She was an organizer. Okay? That's how that got done. And then when the brothers stand up in front of the Lincoln Memorial bombing, a sister, Mahalia Jackson, says, tell him about your dream, brother. Why'd she say that? Because the brother had been at a speech in Detroit 6 weeks earlier, which also bombed. But at the end, he had a peroration where he was trying to talk about this dream that he had. And even though that didn't work, it was still better than stuff he was doing there. So Mahalia said, tell him about your dream. Tell him about your dream, Martin. Tell him about your dream. Dr. King never reads the last paragraph of the speech as written. If you watch him, he pushes the speech away, puts his hand on the podium, and he steps back. And freestyles, as the kids say, off the dome, freestyles the greatest act of slam poetry in the history of the Republic. That's what he does. Why then, 50 years later, am I on CNN watching 3 presidents, Clinton, Carter, and Obama, throwing elbows at each other, trying to stand on the spot where the brother gave the speech? You can look on YouTube. I don't make this stuff up. You got to think about this now. A 33-year-old kid is freestyling, and 50 years later, 3 sitting presidents are trying to stand on the spot. What did he do? What did he say? The reason the first part of the speech didn't work is it was about the past. He articulated a future that could work. See, progressive politics, when we start talking about equity, has become a politics of nostalgia and lament. I'm going to say it again because that was deep. That was deep. I said progressive politics, when it comes to equity, has become a politics of nostalgia and lament. We have nostalgia for Dr. King. We have nostalgia for Mandela. We have nostalgia for Ella Jo Baker. We have nostalgia for Cesar Chavez. We have nostalgia, and then we have lament about slavery and segregation and stolen land and bad statistics. That's the part of the speech that nobody can listen to for very long. What is the politics of the future? What is the future that we're fighting for? Let's not forget now, when this 33-year-old kid is up here freestyling, talking about black and white kids can hold hands, stuff like that, they had just put dogs on children in Birmingham that summer. They had just put fire hoses on children in Birmingham that summer. 2 weeks later, they blew up a church and killed 4 little black girls. What he was talking about wasn't something that was reasonable, that seemed likely to ever occur. He was talking about something that seemed to everybody transparently, ridiculously impossible. But he set a future out there that we've been working toward for 50 years. Well, the brother was only 39 when he was dead. He's been gone now longer than he was ever here. What's the future we're fighting for now? Because if you can't explain that to people, you're just going to have a bunch of bad statistics, some interesting legislative proposals, and a bunch of white guilt. That's what you're going to have. Am I right? We're all friends here. And very little progress in these communities. So how do we articulate a future worth fighting for? You can't start with Martin Luther King. You got to start with Trayvon Martin. You got to start with the kids that David is standing up for and working with every day. You got to start with these kids that nobody wants to deal with. Because America in the next 50 years is going to look a lot more like Brazil and a lot more like South Africa, a multiracial democracy, 2 big multiracial democracies with every color in the Skittles bag, than it looks like Marin County today. So if you can't deal with these kids and give them a future, you basically, by giving up on these kids, have given up on America. So what can we do? Marin County has the most important role to play in a national strategy for equity. If you guys can't get together here with all these liberals, and this much wealth and genius and prosperity and meditating, am I wrong? So I'm going to tell you 2 things and sit down, because you guys came here to see the people get the awards, but I'm going to tell you what, I think... Preach on. You know, I'm home. I can say anything in Northern California. Y'all know me, so I can say what I want to say. I'm on CNN, I got to say it polite. Well, Newt. Look, y'all, this is not hard. That's the heartbreaking thing about it. There are no dogs. There are no fire hoses. There's no Klan. It's just us. This is not hard. You got a bunch of kids. You know what's going to happen to them. They get thrown in jail, and they're going to have no job skills. Fix it. I mean, quit making this thing so dadgum complicated. Close the prison doors, open the doors of opportunity for these kids. This is not difficult. It's not difficult. You're spending $100,000, $120,000 per year per kid to lock them up in California, and then 80% of them wind up going to adult prison anyway. So you got $120,000 a year prep schools for adult prison. That's stupid. That's not left or right, that's just stupid. You give me 1 kid and $120,000. Think about that. How can you have 1 kid and $120,000 $100,000 and the kid still gets in trouble. I mean, just think, let's get rational here. I have one kid, I would say to the kid, here, okay, kid, let's talk about this. In Europe. Let's talk about this in Europe. I'm going to buy you a hybrid so we can drive to the airport. When we get finished touring around Europe, we still have like $100,000. Stay out of trouble at the end of the year, I'll give you half. Done! It's just done. There's no way to mess up this much money and still have this many kids in trouble unless you never intended to help the kids in the first place. Yeah. So you guys got this Jessica Jackson, who just won in the city council race here in Mill Valley. Give her a big round of applause. She's an up-and-coming young Democrat, Jessica Jackson. She wants to work with Levine and these other guys to do something about the criminal justice system, to reform it, to make it smaller and more effective. You can look. I don't like these knucklehead kids out here doing bad stuff, but I'll tell you what. When I was at Yale, I never saw more nonviolent drug offenders than in the student body. The only place there were more nonviolent drug offenders in the student body at Yale was the faculty at Yale. So nobody, come on now. We know what to do with kids in trouble with drugs. I never saw any of those kids go to prison. They went to rehab, some of them. And now some of them are in the Senate. I don't mean to bust somebody out, but you can see who's in the Senate and when I was there. So do something about that. Number 2, quit coming up with dumb ideas for what kids could do for a job. I'm just sick of it. I was in Washington, D.C. talking to some congressional Democrats, and they're talking about, we're going to bring manufacturing jobs back to America. I said, no, you're not. That's just silly. And if you did, you wouldn't create any jobs anyway. Why? Because when the manufacturing jobs left America, you had a whole bunch of people and a few machines. When they come back, they'll have a whole bunch of machines and very few people. Why? Robots. Automation. So it's not going to be, you could have much more manufacturing, the robots will be very happy. But the people won't. So don't come up with dumb ideas. The reality is, we know what the jobs of the future look like. There'll be 3D printing, desktop production. You're going to have robots, smart screens, apps. So don't teach these poor kids to stand in the back of the line for manufacturing and service jobs that are going to be wiped out anyway. Teach them to design the robots and design the smart screens and design the apps. Teach them to be the computer coders. Now, that's what they're doing with poor kids in India. That's what they're doing with poor kids in Nigeria. That's what they're doing with poor kids in India. We could be doing that with poor kids right here in the Bay Area, and Marin County should be leading the way on that. Period. You got Silicon Valley right down the road. So look, we do too much baby talk around here. This is serious. This is probably the one place in America, Northern California, you got every kind of person ever born right here. Every faith, every race, every culture, every gender expression, every sexuality expression, every kind of human being ever born is right here in the Bay Area. You've got Silicon Valley down there, remaking every industry, disrupting every industry, and it's as white as it could possibly be down there. You've got the genius and the creativity of the Bay, when you're talking about Berkeley, when you're talking about Oakland, San Francisco, Marin County. You've got the wealth of Marin County. You've got the big hearts of Marin County. If you can't figure out how to take all these little low opportunity kids, whatever color they are, and get behind them and have some tremendous success stories, then the rest of the country should just give up. You have a responsibility here, not just to these little committees, things, you to the rest of the country, to the world. And if Nelson Mandela can sit up in a jail cell and change the world from there, what could we be doing right here? We got to raise the bar. And I'll tell you this, if we do our work right and well here in Marin County and get behind some of these leaders that you heard popping up here and talking while y'all were doing all this on your smartphone, I saw you. You could right here in Northern California reach in some of these communities and have 10,000 Mark Zuckerbergs, 100,000 Mark Zuckerbergs. But an awful lot of them could look like Trayvon Martin. Thank you very much.